1. Welcome to At Sometime Somewhere, the podcast from Audio-Technica about arts and culture in New York City. I'm Wev, and I'm here with Nick.
Hello.
Nick AM, the illustrious, mysterious.
I hope so. I don't know. Yeah, we just played a really fun show together.
We did.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
It was the biggest headline show I've ever played.
Yeah.
And it was also together, and it was also, for as much as I believed in the music that we made when we made it, it just never occurred to me that we would get to do that. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I always knew we would. I mean,
well, it's not that I didn't think we could.
Yeah.
It's just it never like crossed my mind that like, oh, we would, we have this project and then we would go and like headline elsewhere with it.
It was pretty amazing.
And that was top 3 most fun times I've had DJing. I think.
It's definitely up there for me. I mean, it's cool now that it happened, and like when it was happening, that was really a blast. I mean, yeah.
Oh, there's video evidence of it being a blast.
Yeah.
When I was scrubbing through the video, you were having such a good time. I was grinning the whole time I'm watching that video. You were just at it. It was fun.
Cool. I mean, like friends were there. I had some family members there, which was really fun for me. Like, because like I always want to have like more family members of mine to come out to my stuff, but like it's always like once the ball is rolling, once there's like something really like where I know that they'll be taken care of well, and they'll have like because like I play a lot of small clubs where like they'll come, like friends will come, family will come, whatever, but like when you can like hang out in the booth and like you have kind of this bigger production with lighting and like feed off like a really big room and big crowd energy, there's just something about that. I mean, like, and we felt it ourselves when we were playing, which was like, dude, it was magical. It was real. And the craziest part was like the end, I think. Like we ended on such a great note, and there was like a crowd of people just like still staying there. Like, we went out, we talked to them, like they were buying merch, they were like asking for autographs, like I've never really experienced that before.
Yeah, I've never gotten one more song before.
Yeah.
But it's like, how many shows have you been to? You've seen people get encored.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like manufactured.
Yeah.
But this was like, we stopped. We were booked till 4. We stopped at 4:02, and we played music till 4:20.
Yeah.
Because people, to the dismay of the security, for whatever reason, elsewhere security staff is listening to this. I appreciate your patience.
Oh yeah,
deeply.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys.
That was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, we hung out. Yeah.
And I think, because we did the show in May, which was, that was magical in its own right. Deeply fulfilling, brainchild of mine for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But because of the nature of that, we're right under residential. It's like a hard out after our set. And we also have visuals going on, and we kind of had to adhere to this, somewhat of a timetable just so that we could deliver that whole experience. But elsewhere this time, we just got to play some records.
Yeah.
We played our music. You played some really fun stuff, by the way. That was...
Did you too, man?
That was really fun. But yeah, it was nice to just... You and I could just kind of clock in with each other and just play some records and have a blast. And
it was way more laid back, I feel. I mean, it was longer. It was 2 hours. Like, I mean, for those listening that might not be aware, we kind of did a show a few months ago prior to this headline set at Elsewhere, which had like a whole production and the really, really crazy visuals like mapped to the walls. Which that was like your brainchild for a long time, and you brought it into this project that we worked on, and it was so cool. I mean, but we played for about an hour, and it was a very dialed in set that was kind of like, it was live but mapped to the production, the visuals that were mapped, and it was a great experience. And we were able to do it in a space that was kind of gifted to us for the event. We spent like 2 or 3 days, I think, in the space, setting it up by hand with our friends. And it was amazing, but like night and day difference between just plugging in the USB and just having the DJ set like that.
Yeah,
elsewhere.
It wasn't as nebulous, I guess, as a DJ set can be, because we're communicating to the VJ and to the production team, like, this is what we're going to do, these are kind of the moments, because we're trying to create this interaction between the visuals and the music, and then trying to create the interaction between the audience and what's going on collectively, which is fairly normal, I think, in terms of live music at a certain echelon.
Yeah.
You have VJs, you have visual production, you have moments, you have stuff time coded and things like that. That was my first time doing it.
Yeah.
So it was that was as much a learning experience as anything. I think just taking this opportunity to talk about that, because our project, the Feel Everything EP, was, for me personally, the most complete expression creatively of a release or of what I would consider my artistry, which is not solely my artistry. I think what I'm doing exists at the intersection of my friend's art and my own art, very purposefully. But that event, the vinyl, the toy, the way, just everything that we did around it, now having a couple months after the fact, sort of like look back on it, it really was the most complete expression of anything that I've done solely or collaboratively so far.
Yeah.
And that event was a huge part of that, just in its execution, but also just the community that sort of rallied around the event to make it happen, the community of people that were there at the event and getting to experience that, like, with us. Because for as much as we, of course, we planned it, and Izzy and Sean and Underscore just putting in sweat equity, and Annabelle putting in, so much time and thought power and outreach and everything. We got into every detail that we needed to make it happen, but we also got to experience it for the first time at the event, as I think, most everyone that was there. It was a pretty unique thing, and at least in scale, and in concept. So
I think we were playing at one point, and you tapped me on the shoulder, you go, look around. I was like, wait, this is crazy. Because we didn't even rehearse it with the visuals, just because we were kind of
we couldn't.
We were in such a crazy time crunch.
We had 14 hours, the whole day before the event.
Yeah.
Which should have been our rehearsal day.
Yeah.
We were in hell.
Yeah.
We were in projector hell. One of the projectors just dead on arrival. So then we had to wait. And then when we got the new one, then the switcher box thing that he had, that would, I guess for those listening who didn't see this online or whatever, we essentially went into a space that was 4 white walls, and we set up a full, what would that be, 270 projection map. So it's all 3 of the walls in a continuous frame, with the idea being, and it was what, like a 200 cap, I think, was the whole space.
I think, maybe. Yeah.
Because I know we were pushing Fire Marshal sellout at 175 tickets.
Yeah. And we sold over that, I think.
Yeah. Just because of we weren't utilizing the whole space. Anyway, so at that scale, a 200 person room, the concept was that if you're standing facing the stage or the music at all, which in our case was just a platform in kind of the middle, you could look in any direction and be immersed in the visuals, which my good homie and longtime collaborator Nam Mac at Lord Stingray produced for our project. And the day that we would have had in the space to rehearse these visuals and to have an understanding of what it would look like, both as the VJ or as us or anything, the tech didn't work. We couldn't get the tech working until 2 a.m. Day of the show.
2 a.m. That became the day of the show. Yeah. It's the night before, but day of the show.
It was brutal.
Yeah,
it was a brutal day.
And the computer, right? That was another issue. We had a friend come through with his own gaming computer to
Alex Helt patron saint.
Such a great guy.
I called him at midnight.
Yeah.
I called him at midnight, and he was having like a party with his roommate, who's also a friend of mine. They were just, brewing up or whatever. And I said, Alex, I have an insane thing to ask you. And I was like, we are throwing this event tomorrow. As you know, the tech has not worked all day. And I'm pretty sure if we had a PC, like a gaming PC, that it would fix it immediately. Like, is there any world where I could Uber you to the venue with your computer and we could like use it for the show? Didn't even blink.
Yeah,
he was like, yeah.
Through.
He just was like, yeah, I'll get it ready right now. And after, we're 14 hours stressing. The whole team is sweating this because we're trying to find every contingency. We went to that, like, Natasha and I went to this like electronics store or computer store that was, I think it was like the Jewish part of Williamsburg.
Oh yeah, I drove you guys there.
Yeah. And so it was open until like midnight for whatever.
Thank God.
I don't understand, but it was open, and they could have saved our ass if the cable ended up being the issue. But we're just like, what are we going to do? Like, the whole show is built around this. And then Brandon Alex gets his computer, which by the way is not in a case. You remember it was like an open, it's like this gnarly gaming computer, and it's not enclosed in a case. It's the sketchiest
Very
thing
vulnerable.
in the world to move.
Yeah.
And it's probably thousands of dollars, like, serious gaming rig. And he just doesn't even blink. He's just like, yeah, I'll bring it right now. And they pull up, we plug it in, it works.
Dude, friendship, man. The importance of good friends helps.
No, that show, I don't know what else we would have done. He really saved that show. And
it took a village.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And the whole, everyone who worked on it were homies.
Yeah.
Like every single person, like we had beverage sponsors. Topo Chico was awesome. They brought us a bunch of free bevs. We had Lunar, same thing. And I think Topo Chico had the reps there, which were really cool people. And I think Natasha's homegirl was bartending. But in terms of production, we had Izzy, we had Underscore, Natasha, Nam, you and I, Justine.
All of the openers are great.
Oh yeah. It's like one of my best friends DJ'd, Days DJ'd, Fever Dream DJ'd, like two of my favorite New York DJs. It was like the whole event was homies. It felt very, and because of the nature of, we promoted it on Reels and TikTok. I think there was a lot of people there that were either like newly tapped in, or maybe were newly actually showing up to events. Like maybe they had known about URI and they came, but there's a lot of people there I just didn't recognize or know, which is a fairly new thing.
Yeah, I was in the crowd for the openers, and like I was chopping it up with this guy, and he was just like, yeah, like this just came up on my For You page, and like, I wanted to check it out. I was like, it's so insane. It's really, really interesting these days how like, access to, to be able to promote anything, as long as like you're able to kind of make a great short form video that kind of like embodies the emotion of what an event is, or even, a product, whatever. If it, you find the right way to hit the algorithm, you can just, reach a whole new audience very quickly.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's also really interesting. You do have a lot to compete with. Well,
it was nice that the foundation of the event was so deeply my existing community, or our community.
Yeah.
Because I think if it wasn't, if we had a real budget of some kind and we just hired people, and then a bunch of people that, just kind of came from the algorithm because it looked cool or fun, it's like, of course, grateful for people to come, and was super grateful to everyone that came to that event. But, it really is the community fabric, I think, that keeps it special and authentic, especially for like the first one, this being the proof of concept.
Yeah, I think what helped too, was like, you were having a really good month. You're still having a really good time, but you know, you had just opened for Sammy Virgi, and you had just kind of, you know, teased out your remix for Tank, the Cowboy Bebop edit. And, you know, you hit that crazy viral video. You know, Anthony Fantano shared it. Like, you know, what is that, like 10 million views now?
Yeah, between the like 2 or 3 times I posted it.
Yeah, so it's
about like over 10.
Really, really like amazing timing, you know, for us to be putting out a project and then also like building up to having that event, because like, you know, obviously we work so hard behind the scenes, you know, but like if you you know, hit a viral video or two, like it can completely change, you know, the next few months of your life.
Well, yeah, and that's, you know, that's the divine order, I guess, is that, you know, we made this project, what, 3 years ago?
I mean, like, we started, I guess, 3 years ago, and it's been like, you know,
but at least 2 years ago, like, we had the songs, like
we were ready to put it out.
We had the track list like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had, unfortunately, a pretty toxic management situation at the time.
Yeah. That was the inspiration for one of the songs, Circles. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the first things we ever made.
Yeah.
Actually, the first thing we made?
Circles was the first thing we made.
It was the first session. It was like, it was one of the first songs.
So it was the first session. We came in, we raw dogged a session. We ended up making a song that was on my last project,
The French Night Rider,
which ended up being called Breathless. But then at the end of the session, you were like, hey, I have this one track I've been sitting on. Maybe you'd made it earlier that day or that week, and you were like, you know, what does it need? And I was like, honestly, I think it just needs vocals. And I kind of started to like incorporate my own vocals in my music. And, you know, I was just like, what's the song about? And you said, well, it was kind of just, you know, going back and forth, running in circles, having a conversation for like an hour or two with my manager. I was like, all right, well, let's lead with that. And then running around in circles. And then that was kind of how the vocals came out. And, you know, it worked. And so that was a really good first session we had, which is rare to find somebody. You know, I've been producing for years and have collaborated with plenty of people, and some people that it's worked out really well with. But the fact that we've been able to be consistent since that day is really amazing and very, very rare.
Very hard to find.
And something that I don't want to take for granted.
Yeah, so don't move to LA again for a year and abandon me.
Things happen. You never know.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and so this is 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we have this music. And you know, at the time I was still in this management situation in which, you know, he had a playlist of my unreleased music. It's probably, conservatively, there was 12 tracks.
12 tracks?
You know, there's our project.
Yeah.
A bunch of my own singles. Mm-hmm. There's another project I have with another artist.
The Lauren Faith one?
The Lauren Faith one.
That stuff is really good.
There was a lot of music, and basically what was happening with my manager at that time was he would just kind of call every couple weeks, just be like, oh, like, you don't have any music, you don't have a vision, you're irrelevant, you know, you just frankly very unhelpful things, especially when there's a playlist filled with songs. But for a while, I was very like troubled by the fact that it's like I feel like I want to release this music, but I don't feel empowered to do so.
Yeah.
And then you ended up getting that job with, I think, the people you're working with now, or like you moved to LA. You know, I was cooking on that project with Lauren at the time, kind of navigating my situation, and our project kind of just was on SoundCloud. And I guess it was middle of last year, maybe like late summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm listening to it, and it's like, you know, why don't we just do this? Why don't we try to do this ourselves? Why don't we try to just release this ourselves?
Yeah.
And I was getting in the headspace of doing some kind of immersive show, because when we had Evan's art forever, I talked to Nam about doing visuals in exchange for a flight to Japan, and which he agreed to. So it was like, okay, well, we have these visuals, we have the music, you know, let's kind of sort out the last 10% of the record. And we made that Google Doc. I made that Google Doc in Japanese to send to Naruki of like, hey, we have this idea.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We have this idea for a show. And it, you know, it doesn't pan out happening in Japan. Get to February, Virgie show. bebop thing goes crazy. And then it's like we have so much leverage all of a sudden.
Yeah.
There's an audience, there's leverage, there's more resources. Like I had met Izzy kind of independent of the social media stuff. And I mean Izzy event would not have happened without Izzy.
No, and it's crazy because we had just seen him play with Swami Sound, doing Swami Sound's live show at Elsewhere. And it was really awesome. We went to the after party. He was there. And we were just like, hey, like, we want to do a live show. Immediately, he was like, I'm down. Let's do it. Like,
Izzy is just a down.
It was crazy.
Down
the way
individual.
that he jumped on it, like, right after, like, right then and there, and then immediately started working. Was, like, he really is an amazing soul for any, like, industry people watching this. That guy is, he is one to watch.
Izzy Burns has receipts. Yeah. That's what Izzy Burns has. A lot of people can do a lot of things. And there's a lot of people that will tell you that they can do something or that they will do something for you or that they, they have this or that. Izzy's got receipts.
Yeah, he has receipts indeed.
And I met him at Marcus's house fairly soon, or I guess very close to when that Elsewhere show was.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly when, but we chopped up a little bit, and it was one of those friendships where it's like you very quickly kind of was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. We have a lot of mutual interests and a lot of mutual people. And, it's kind of like fast friendship.
Yeah.
On that basis, it became pretty quickly clear to me the type of person he was. And again, the receipts. Because, in my personal life, I had met someone that also it seemed like a fast friendship, maybe some similar interests, but it turns out a lot of it was a sham. Unfortunately, just kind of a manipulative individual who I'm no longer friends with. And so I was reticent a little bit when I met Izzy. I'm just like, oh wait, I remember this happened like kind of recently. Like I felt this way. I met this person, but it just very quickly, like within our mutual friends, just seeing his work, just seeing the receipts, it was like, okay, no, you can stand on everything you're saying, and he did.
Yeah.
And yeah, he just, when we were trying to figure out how we're going to do this event, we were, we had friends put us in touch with some people. Like someone got on a phone call with someone. He had a beer in his hand. He was drunk. Like we're kind of hitting all these dead ends trying to plan this event. Wild. And I eventually was like, Izzy, can I show you this thing we're trying to do? Like, I just, because I'm like, you have a production company, you have Underscore. Like, I would just love your input. Like, where should we look? And I sent him the Google Doc, and he's like, oh, we could do this. And he's like, really?
And we
he's
did
just
it.
like, yeah, we can super do this.
Yeah.
He's like, let me know your budget. And, we figured out how much money we were willing to lose out of our pocket and gave him that number. And he was just like, yeah, we can super do this. And he brought us Natasha, and like, just a gift.
Yeah.
Izzy was a gift to work with that entire event. Deeply respect how he works with his team. Like the pep talk he gave us all, like on event day, kind of the ground rules he set for everyone working together, just the way he treats his coworkers, his teammates at Underscore, the way he treats people around him is, yeah. I could rattle on all day about Izzy Burns.
He's a real one.
Real one.
Yeah.
But that's the thing though. Like, we could have put the music out 2 years ago. But like what we would have not had was that.
Yeah.
And I think a lesson that I've been very grateful to have learned in my life after years of doing this is it's easy, or can be easy, to want to impose your will on something you're trying to achieve. It's like you really want to get after it. Like every day, like you're going to work hard. You're going to just like keep pushing it, keep trying to like just impose this will or this reality into being. But what ends up happening when you do that, having done this, is that you miss the opportunities that would actually get you there. Because you're so focused on, maybe you fall into lack, right? Maybe you're focused on this thing you don't have and you're trying to get it, but then you're operating in a state of lack. Or maybe you're just trying to just hit it so hard every day, and it's just like grind, that you aren't attentive to the opportunities around you, or the possibilities, or kind of the way things are going, and you end up missing those. And so what I've learned is sometimes it's more effective, dare I say more wise, to just kind of be like watching and waiting, just kind of sit back and take it in, and just be very attentive to those opportunities. And when the right one or the right set of circumstances line up, that's when you act. Then you pounce on that. But it's so much better to just prepare what you can prepare, but you don't have to like try to just impose your will on this very nebulous, chaotic sort of existence we have. It's like just wait, and when the things line up, then you act, and you're ready to act. And that's what we did. Like, the iron was hot from things that you couldn't predict. I couldn't predict that video was going to do what it's going to do.
Yeah.
I could maybe predict I would have opened for Sammy Virgie. That made enough sense. But like the video going, no idea. Meeting Izzy, no idea. You don't know. But those things presented themselves, and it was like, now is the time to act. And then we acted. And what we could then do creatively, the way we could present that work to people, the experience we could create for people, internally and externally, like fans and team, was just so much greater than what we would have had the resources or know-how or really anything to do 2 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I think a big factor too is, I mean, we were prepared for all of it, which was a good thing. You know, I mean, we had all the music. I think like with the VRG show, like you came prepared. You knew that you wanted to have something being recorded for that moment, so you kind of made your own luck there, you know. Yeah,
well, and that was probably the 7th.
You had the record
attempt.
Prepared.
That was like that show, I think, was probably the first time I actually successfully recorded myself playing live.
So you had tried beforehand.
I had been trying.
Oh, okay.
I had been trying. Because I was like, I had a GoPro. I'm like, you know, I should start just setting this up at a show just so I have clips. Because, you know, possibly a familiar frustration, if you're an artist or a producer listening to this, is that you also have to be a short form content creator. And you've probably put your head through your phone trying to record things in your house, or, you know, trying 100 things that feel deeply disingenuous and are even less effective. And it's, you know, you're maybe applying these same principles of like your art making to the content production. It's like, I've gone through that gamut, as many people have. And at Elsewhere, I was like, well, this is so far the biggest booking that I've had. So I'm going to just set up 2 cameras. I borrowed my friend Dante's GoPro. I'm just going to put it in front and in back and just record it. And I played that Bebop remix. People didn't really react. And I was like, oh, damn. Like, that would have gone a lot differently in my head. But okay, I had made it before I went to Japan last year. So I made it because I was going to Japan for those shows. So, and before that, I was just playing the original. But
was it going off in Japan?
Like, kinda. Like it went off at Sultan Room, kinda.
Okay.
Because there was a lot. It was like a Ronin collab thing we did. So
Sultan Room in
Brooklyn. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So there was a video. There was videos of me playing it online before this. But yeah, I just I got the whole set on video. I like sent it to you and just like, oh yeah, like how should we cut it? And you just, you know, you tweaked it a little bit. We posted it, and it went crazy.
Yeah, I remember when you sent it to me. I was like, whoa. I was like, this is the moment, dude.
It was wild.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, you know, the being lucky thing is something I learned.
Making your own luck.
Well, it's partially making your own luck. It's partially recognizing that everybody gets lucky, but not everyone is prepared when they get lucky.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to learn that as a sports photographer. Like, you know, when that was a previous career of mine from I was 16 to like 21, 22. And that's a page I took out of Neil Leifer's book, who at the time, of all the most famous sports images ever captured, Neil had like 60 to 70% of them.
Oh, wow.
Absurd. Like just an insane percentage of the images. And that was his maxim. Just like luck favors the prepared.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not about if you get lucky. Everyone gets lucky. But like, when you get lucky, you better be ready. And, you know, there's, I guess maybe just being around athletics a lot too. It's a similar school of thinking, just kind of always be on, always be ready. And, you know, fortunately enough, I think the circumstances coalesced in a way that I was ready. I'm very grateful that you were in my life. You helped me navigate that, you know, those few weeks and beyond, but especially those first few weeks. You were like holding my life together.
Yeah, man.
And just like the friends and sort of community around me at that time, I was able to capitalize on it. I was able to take that moment and actually make it mean something and move things forward. And that gave us a fantastic opportunity for our music. And yeah, I mean, it's been a really wild year since then.
Yeah. It's been fun. It's definitely been fun. What are you excited for next?
Well, I've got my next project pretty much done. I was on tour in Japan for the month of June.
Yeah.
And I wrote probably half the project there.
Cool.
I got an apartment in Okubo, and I brought my 303, bought some gear when I was out there, found like an EMX for real cheap. I found a 202 sampler, and yeah, I'm excited about those songs.
Cool.
For sure. One of them I've been rinsing for like a year.
Start Something?
And
you just put that one out too.
Which I just put out.
Yeah, and then it was in the Marc Jacobs video.
It was, yeah. It was
that's really cool.
It was Nam and I again. It was a campaign for the upcoming season, Marc Jacobs models, I believe, and Nam made an animation for them. And very canonically with Nam, you know, I get the text like, "Hey, can I use this for this thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course. When's it coming out?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't know." And it's like 2 days later, just out. He didn't know. I didn't know. It's like, oh, all right. Well, I guess the song's coming out.
Cool.
Yeah, let's do that. That was a fun little experiment. I've never, because everything they tell you about distributing music is like, oh, you gotta like 4 weeks in advance. You gotta pitch it. You gotta do all this, all these rules. And I was like, what if it came out 8 hours from now? Let's just see if that works. I was just curious. And I think Spotify bought DistroKid, which is something I read. So I was like, I'm curious. I'm curious how fast this can actually happen, because I know there's a lot of red tape in distro, but we're also uploading a file. I think we pretty much have that dialed now. So it seems like it can't be that difficult. And it was on Spotify at midnight. I don't know if it went on Apple right away. I got the email that it was live on Apple like the next day, but it was liberating. It was a liberating feeling knowing that, you know, as an artist, it's like, oh, I can just put it out. It's the further you get into making music, there's so many considerations after you've made the thing. Like, oh, I have to do all this. I have to market it. I have to, you know, I have to pitch it to people. I have to get press. I have to make. It's like, no, you can actually just upload it. You can just like put it in the world and then just kind of figure it out from that point. I was thinking about my friends in Kafune, the Tech It song.
Yeah.
That song on that EP was like my breakup EP.
Yeah.
Like a year, 2 years before it blew up. And that's when I was listening to it, and they released it even longer ago.
Yeah.
But then, you know, TikTok does its thing. It blows up basically as big as it can blow up. And I was just thinking about that. I'm like, they put that out years ago, and then it caught. And then every promotional thing that you could have done or needed to do. I mean, in that case, it's, you know, huge virality, so I think it's different. But it's just like, yeah, they just put it out, did what they did when it came out, and then just moved on from it completely. It's like you can only control so much what happens, you know, beforehand. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure, you know, pitch it to Spotify, do all that, whatever. But it's like, most importantly, it's you can just put it out. It can just exist. And then you can figure it out later. And it's actually probably better that you spend more time promoting it after it's out than tripping too hard about what happens before it comes out. Because like day one streams, whatever. Like that doesn't matter. To the overwhelming majority of people, it doesn't matter. But I think energetically,
it's like all about compounding interest.
Yeah, so,
you know,
that's a good way of describing it.
Over time, things build. Yeah, but that's cool though. I'm excited for the EP
as well.
Yeah, I think I've heard most of those tracks. Entropy is a great one.
Ooh,
we've played that a few times together.
Entropy is not on the EP.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Oh, wow.
No, but
why not?
It's a great question.
Just put it on.
So I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
I'm just gonna start making classical music.
Put it out right now too, while we're sitting here in this conversation.
Dude, don't tempt me.
Yeah.
I could. No, I think the other thing that I'm, it's maybe not so much future, but getting back to what you were talking about earlier, because of what's gone down the last 6 months, I was actually able to fly my little sister to Japan when I was there on tour, which was really the first time that I had family at a show.
Oh, wow.
My cousin came to our show. I didn't get to like chop up with him too much, but my little sister was able to come to Tokyo and see me do my thing a couple times.
That's fun.
And just, that in general, in terms of life satisfaction, that was probably one of the highest, that was just like, I'm going to think about that forever type thing. But yeah, the feeling of like playing music for people and knowing like, oh, my like sister's here getting to experience this. Yeah. And she's meeting some of my friends in Japan. And she met like a YouTuber that she's watched every day for 5 years. Who just happened to come to the show, happened to have some mutual friends. That was really cool. I'm trying to continue to revel in that because it was one of the more pronounced fruits of the labor of the last 6 years of doing this. Mm-hmm. That really makes it not only makes it all worth it, like all the effort so far worth it, but just contextualizes again like what's important about it. And it's like, streams, even money, whatever. Like, I made enough to be able to do that and not like financially ruin myself. It's like, that is extremely worth it. That's the coolest thing in the world to me, to be able to bring my family out to something. So you just keeping that emphasis on like family and community as like the basis of everything. Just, as we did, mm-hmm. making things for the people that are already tapped in. So like, new people, great, cool. But like, let's just do what we think is the coolest and make it the experience overall as cool as possible for the people that are here.
Yeah.
And like take care of the ones that are already there, because then every new person who taps in, that's the culture. That's the like experience of the artistry or whatever. And that's just way more fulfilling to me personally than any metric success.
It's all about the people, man. Yeah. Getting them together, connecting. That's a big reason why I started doing it myself. I think I always go to a lot of shows, and I always thought like it'd be really cool if like someone came and saw me live and like met somebody that they fell in love with, in the crowd. And I think about that a lot when I'm making music, and like who's listening to this, like who's this gonna reach? Mm-hmm. And will they fall in love? Will they send this to somebody, their crush, like, hey, like here's this Nick song I found, what do you think about it? Stuff like that. That's what keeps me doing it, I guess, now, because there's a lot going on these days, and I'm always like, why am I still doing this? But things like that, moments, experiences that we have together, playing, sending something to my fiance and her listening to it and loving it. At the end of the day, being creative, it's like, it's not really like switch you can turn off. You know, like I feel as though I'm cursed, you know, where like, you know, I'll wake up or the day will pass on, and I'll just get this itch to like just make something with sound. And, you know, it just completely compels me to the point where I'm like, I need to set everything else aside right now. And then I try to focus on other things at some point. And I do, but like, you know, it's always like, oh, I want to get back to that. And, you know.
Is that a curse?
For me, it feels like a curse. Yeah. You know, I mean, the artist's life isn't really, you know, the most secure life. You know, there's ups and downs. I think, you know, you even see it with artists at the very, very top of their game. You know, I think, you know, I mean, one of the things you hear all the time about, you know, whatever rapper, pop artist, you know, oh, they fell off, you know, which is a really interesting thing, you know, like somebody who's just, you know, going about trying to have a career as an artist. Unfortunately, maybe one day they lose favor, or someone else comes in the realm and takes up their space that might have a similar sound or vibe or audience, or the fans age out, you know, maybe they're not going to concerts anymore, or they're, you know, they've lost touch with, you know, what's hip. So, you know, these are things that I always think about, but those are also things that are like everything that isn't the art, you know. At the end of the day, if you're an artist, you want to create. So
right, which is the being an artist as a verb being the most important part of that. And there are many perils to making art, making music, whatever, in that there's things that threaten your ability to sustainably do it. You know, whether it's a financial, or, as you said, like the circumstances, the culture changes, you know, things change, people change, you need to make money, you have different priorities, whatever it is. But the making of the art, the exercising of the human creative faculty, which I think is it's just a truth of being human. It's not a matter of like, you know, you either are creative or you're I'm not creative, or like I'm not artistic, or whatever. It's like you could say you're not artistic, but fundamentally as a human being you are creative. Is my belief.
Okay.
And in the context of art, which I might define, at least in part, as revealing something about the human condition. You know, maybe it's, you know, you're drawing from your own experience, or wherever you reach into to make your art or your music, there's this catharsis of like the making of the thing. And maybe that thing reveals something about humanness. Maybe it doesn't. But the important thing that you do as a human being that has become, you know, or is in touch with their creative faculty is to use it.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And, you know, whether or not you are like doing it as a career, or you're finding success in it, or whatever, it's like the flow state, the joy of art making, the expression of this thing inside, or whatever it is, or the capture of whatever's floating around in the room, and the creation into something. I think that's just one of the most fundamentally human things we can do, and just like an innately fulfilling thing. And I don't think there's a more worthy use of like your time or your energy. And even if that means you're just making things and sending it to your friends, you know, you're not worried about releasing it or performing it or whatever, sometimes that's better. But, you know, if you measure your life as like good days versus bad days, good, you know, time spent well, in which you're happy, flow state, present, versus time spent, you know, negatively, not in that state. If more of the time was spent in these like fulfilling kind of modalities, or you're spending your time doing something that, you know, you feel enriched by, or that you felt fulfilled by, you know, the doing of it or what happened afterwards. If you have more of those days than not, lived a good life.
Cool.
And I think if you spent more of your time, you know, if you feel this compulsion to create, it's like, yeah, that's like your humanness. That's like you.
Yeah.
And it's like doing that. Everything else, you know, not to get so like esoteric or reductive and to say that, you know, human suffering isn't like real, or that these things that require money or that require your attention or effort that aren't making things aren't important. Of course they are. But the following of that creative impulse is one of the most like real things I think that we have. It's not like a material good. It's not like, you know, nicer house or nicer car or, you know, financial security or whatever. It's like, no, you're actually the limited finite amount of time that you have, you're using in a way that is like you just connecting to yourself or the source or whatever. And it's like, that seems entirely worth it to me.
Yeah.
And that's my TED Talk.
I feel like there's a few things we discussed last time that were really awesome. I'm trying to think of them right now to kind of bring that back up. Does anything ring a bell to you?
You know, I'm not. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, there was definitely moments that I remember more like emotionally than anything.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing specific. I mean, maybe I would ask, so what are you excited about right now? Like, what are you looking forward to?
A lot of things. I mean, I have a new project I'm working on now, which, I mean, you've heard a few of the tracks. I think we've played a few of the tracks too. Zerna
goes crazy.
That's a banger.
Zerna goes super crazy. No Rain in Navaz.
Yeah, that one's so. Yeah, that whole project. I'm changing the name of it now to Table, which means drum in Farsi and Arabic, just because it's a very drum percussion focused project. I've just been kind of like, for years now, trying to hone in on a sound that really brings in the Far East into, you know, more Western electronic music. And it's just something I've been working on. I mean, with the last project, which you helped mix, How to Stop Time, it was almost there, but it was a little bit more experimental. And I think this time I've fully figured it out. And the truth, it was always just the drums, I think. And they hit hard. And, you know, the samples in them are great. You know, that one track, No Rain Enough, samples a bunch of kids from a town in Iran called Ahvaz, which is near the south, where the dialect is, you know, Farsi leaning into Arabic. And, you know, they're basically, the vocals are them kind of doing kind of like a rain dance, like praying for water, praying for rain because of a crazy drought. So I'm just really excited about, of all the records, that one the most, just because I love, it's just such a human thing, you know. It's crazy. And it's like, you know, like these kids, they're, you know, they don't have any water, and they're like making music, begging for water, hoping the gods will answer them. So like, you know, it's always fun like making music in any regard, but like whenever there's something that I think is just like so pure like that, to be able to capture it and put it into something and be able to like, you know, add more to it and express more to it, you know, for me, that's really cool. And the coolest thing for me also is I'm working with a visual artist, this really awesome guy named Charbeat. I've worked with him in the past, but he's from Ahvaz. He's from that area. And I think he's in Milan right now. But he's going back there to kind of film a music video for it. And, you know, he sent me the deck and everything looks really, really awesome. And I'm really excited to see, you know, what comes out of it. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited for that. Excited to play more of those records live. Played a few of them out this summer. Still figuring out the mixes, which thank you for lending your ears on them.
Always.
Yeah.
No, what I find really interesting about those records and about you is, you know, you have this identity that is, at least musically, almost an equal representation of like your Iranian background, but also like the time you spent living, like being, you know, raised in the East Coast, living in the East Coast, living in New York, because they are, you know, there's the cultural sounds that are very like forward and present in the records, but they're club records. They're decidedly club records, and I hear so much of your experience, you know, DJing around New York City, being in the clubs, and that sensibility, and just the way that you like kind of meld the two together. Yeah, it's really, and also, you know, because we've had the opportunity to play them out in front of people, and so you know, when I hear you playing that song, or even when I'm like mixing out of it or whatever, and I'm just kind of taking in, you know, how people are responding to it, that's got a very strong pulse to those records.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, and this can be said the same for your music. It's like when you're doing something that is different than everything else, but it does speak to an audience that might not be as represented. Like, for instance, like with your edits and all that, like they're reaching this awesome crowd of like people that love anime and all this stuff, but also love electronic music, and they're coming together. And then with, you know, what I've been making, like when my first project that kind of had those Middle Eastern sounds, I was, you know, testing them out in clubs in New York City, and this one record, Take It Back, I'd play it, and, you know, kids would come up to me at this club that I used to play at called Lola. I think it's called Heaven Can Wait now. And, you know, they'd be Persian kids or Turkish kids, and they'd come up to me and be like, yo, like, this is really good. Like, and they'd look at my face, like, are you Persian? Or like, yeah. And then we'd kind of connect on that. So like, this is really cool. I'm reaching a new, you know, I'm reaching the exact kind of people that, like, you know, like I feel need this representation. They don't have this representation, but they're club goers, they're dance music fans. And like, you know, now, you know, I'm creating something that they can enjoy. You know, I made one record. There's a really cool group of people called Disco Tehran, and they're based in New York, and, you know, they play internationally as like a group, doing their events everywhere, and it kind of brings in people from all different kinds of cultures, but like the bedrock of it is just like, you know, these Persian guys from Iran that are like, you know, doing this musical thing. And I remember years ago, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Finally, you know, there's something like where, like, you know, young people that are Persian or Middle Eastern or whatever that want to, you know, go out and like be around a crowd like them, you know, they have this place to go to. And I remember like, I need to play that party. And I made an edit of a Gugush record, and she's like the Madonna of Iran. And I sent it to them, and like they've been playing it, like they played in all their sets. They invited me to play a few times with them, and, you know, that was the beginning of that realization for me, where I was like, okay, like I love making dance music, like just of all genres of dance music, because I'm just a fan of it. So like, this is something that there's not a lot of, and I have so much fun making it, and I have so much fun, you know, when it connects with kids like me, people like me, adults like me. I'm not a kid anymore, but when it does hit, you know, it's very rewarding, you know.
I feel shades of that in the recent experience, like as you mentioned, you know, with anime fans. You just, you know, you see comments, which convenient that they're comments, because you have words that are saying, I had no idea they played this in the club.
Yeah.
I don't go to the club, but if I heard this, I would.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've got some like video game coded songs, which is hilarious if you know my music and you're listening, because it's mostly all of them if you pay attention. But but like, you know, there's a song, Hero, that is, it's sort of an ode to Bomberman Hero for Nintendo 64. And I remember one time playing that, and, you know, no one really reacts. Like, Club Records was keeping it going. And then I just like look in the crowd, and there's just this dude just looking at me, bug-eyed, like pupils fully dilated,
direct connection,
just staring at the back of my skull. And he's like, I see him mouth like, is that? And I was just like, yes,
you got him.
Yes. And I watched this kid have like a religious experience on the floor. I mean, which is, you know, it's much more of a maybe an arbitrary choice relative to my experience, but what you're doing, there's very real cultural root and importance.
But the same,
and representative of like your identity in a way that your identity, or that component of your identity, being part of a larger whole that other people, especially in New York or really everywhere, connect with and feel like they have some home in that space. And that's the power of doing these types of things, is like you can make the space, the club or whatever, you can create space for people to feel at home and, not just feel welcomed in that, this club let me buy a ticket and come inside and dance to whatever's playing. But it's like, oh no, like there's songs that are meant to speak to me. Mm-hmm. And that's been the fun for me to play this bebop edit or play any of these other kitschy references, whether it's stuff I flip or just stuff I lace in the sets, because I know there are people out there that they found enrichment through that thing at some point. Playing the Asian Kung Fu Generation, the Naruto intro track at Renegade with Swami. I knew damn well that no one in that crowd was probably going to know what that was. But what I also knew was that probably 20% of those dudes, most likely, in the crowd, watched Naruto as a kid. And then that neuron was going to fire in their brain at some point during the playing of that song. Yeah. And there's people in Japan going on Twitter, like writing about that, just being like, I like that he went up there in front of like 3,000 people, knowing that none of them were going to know that song, but just played it anyway because it was fun. And then people see it online. And again, now in this space, and frankly, for a lot of, not to speak for other people, but my experience and my perspective on what's happened in the subsequent months of that, is a lot of people that are like anime fans, and that's a more or less central part of their identity, they don't feel welcomed like in the club. That's not they don't feel like that's a space for them, at least some of the time. Now, I'm not speaking for everyone, of course, like I'm not speaking for anyone, but I've kind of observed that. And something as simple as like playing out one of those records, I mean, like playing a rock song in a DJ set is just kitschy and weird, but like playing, the Tank edit, or playing Utada, or playing, stuff from Ape Escape, or like playing, Nintendo flips or whatever. It's like, it creates a space in that environment. It creates a space in going to the club for those kids. Yeah. Or maybe more accurately, for those adults, because, I'm 28. So I think a lot of people that understand they're picking up those references are probably my age. They were 90s kids. They played those games. They were enriched by those games. And every single day for the last 6 months, I have a comment coming through my notifications that's like, if I heard Utada, imprint after flip, if I heard this in the club, I would do a backflip and pass away and descend to the heaven and like explode. Like some variant of that comment I get every single day. I'm not kidding. Yeah. And
it's really good positive reinforcement.
It's hilarious. But I think, and again, like it's anime and it's video games. It's just kind of this arbitrary part of my experience that I was representing. But it's my little microcosm of seeing the effect, which I think you're describing, where it's like you're tapping into this part of your identity or your background or your culture, and you're making it your own in a way. You're representing it. You're the lens, right? Wherever the inspiration is coming from in the moment of like creation of the music, you're this lens that is comprised of your background and your experience, which informs your perspective and your family and all these things. And then this is coming out, and in doing so, and you choosing to give that to the world by releasing it, now there's people that are finding connection or like home in that.
Yeah, gotta feed the streets,
for real.
No, I think
gotta get some rain in a vase.
Yeah, there's this one guy I follow on Twitter, dances, and he said that a long time ago. It was like something along the lines of like, don't just like add noise. Like if there's something that doesn't exist in the streets, I guess, create it, make it, you know?
You gotta, yeah, I think the way that I've identified, to cut through the noise. First of all, like beginning with that intention to cut through the noise. That's something I was fortunate to pick up. I used to work when I was working as a photographer, actually. The creative director on the creative team that I was a part of, that was sort of what he was setting us to do. He's like, because even at that time, this was 2015. So we're on 2015 Instagram trying to figure out how to like brand this thing. I was like working at a startup as a director of photography, and he was like, we have to cut through the noise. Like whatever we do, that's the first order of business. Whatever you capture, however we shoot this, whatever, you got to cut through the noise. And that's just as a reality. Like if we're creating things, trying to market it on the internet today, that is like challenge number one, is how do you cut through the noise? And the way that I've found, or maybe the principle that I've found to do that, is to be self-referential rather than referencing these external things.
Yeah.
I learned that, talking to Nam a lot, we have conversations about this. He's an animator. He is an extremely self-referential artist. He's reaching into his experience, the games that he played, the things that, he was into as a kid. That's what he represents in his art. That really connected with people. He kind of started this wave of a lot of these 3D animators during the pandemic. People locked up, they download Blender, they're learning how to do it. But what my friends and I jokingly refer to as the NAM-Mac industrial complex is all of a sudden you have all these animators referencing NAM.
Yeah.
So you have all this work which just doesn't hit like 98% of the time. It just does not hit. It's just like Walmart NAM because they're referencing NAM. They're not referencing reference material. They're not reaching into their experience very far. They're like, oh, I like what this artist did. I'm going to try to recreate that. Mm-hmm. And, unfortunately, some of it works because the algorithms and there's, social media, there's a lot of slop.
Yeah.
But Nam, and I don't think he was ever really worried about this, but, things we've talked about is like, you don't actually have to worry about anyone biting your style, because what they're not doing is referencing their unique individual experiences. They're referencing you.
Yeah.
So you are always a step ahead. But more importantly, you're always going to cut through the noise because you are reaching into your own set of inspirations. You're not going to the explore page to see what other people are making. You are taking your unique experience and distilling it into something. And you are the lens, and you are distilling the things that shaped you or inspired you into something new and interpreting the present at that time. Whether that's whatever you're into, whatever you're listening to, whatever, things coalesce around his art making. But every time he puts something out, it cuts through the noise because there's nothing like it, because no one can do him better than him.
Yeah. Trust the process and trust yourself.
I got to thank Danny Noguera for that one. He told me it was one of the earliest bits of wisdom I received in my music undertaking was if you can take your own unique experiences and distill it into something, then you have made an original work. And that's the only way to do that. And I've really like kind of lived by that to the maximum extent that I can, and I think that has helped a lot.
That's great. All right. Thanks for sitting down and talking to me today.
Anytime.
Yeah. At Sometimes Somewhere is produced by Audio-Technica for AT1 Radio. It is recorded at AT1 Studio at Technica House, New York. Follow AT1 Radio and Audio-Technica USA on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening.